How's it going, everyone? Jiivita here with a video on how to place fluids. So this is going to be the first of probably several or like a whole series of videos on farming, but this has been the #1 question I've gotten so far, at least related to release 225, which added placeable fluids, farming, and all of that. So without a further ado, to place water, you simply take some water and put it in your hand, and then use your mouse buttons or triggers depending on your input preference, and bam, you have water placed. Now this is probably a bit of a smart alecky answer to that, but that's as simple as it gets. However, probably where the confusion is coming in is that Boundless does have a system, or does have buckets. The problem is that buckets came before placeable fluids, and buckets are used for crafting only. And probably what is a little bit additionally confusing about the buckets is that they will now remove source blocks as of release 225. So that would probably lead, especially new players, to believe that you would be able to use the bucket to place the water back down. And it would be kind of nice if they would add that functionality at some point, but currently you cannot. So you can, however, use buckets as a way to remove water, as you just saw. In order to empty the bucket, you can hit either X or the right joystick button to empty the bucket, and then you can use it to pick up another block of water. Just keep in mind that if you have, like, say 10 buckets all in the same stack, all 10 buckets will be filled by the one source block. So you kind of need to separate them out onto different action bar slots slash different stacks. So it's a little bit tedious, but it might be preferable to the old method of like taking a whole bunch of leaves and filling in the water and then removing the leaves in order to get rid of all the water. But however, to answer the real question probably everybody is having is like, well, okay, how do you get the blocks of water or lava or primordial resin or petroleum, which these are the two new fluids added in release 225. They only come from exo worlds and only certain types of exo worlds, but that might be a video for later. So in order to actually get these placeable versions of the fluids, you need to forge a tool that is a hammer, axe, or shovel with the liquid breaker boon. So you can see that that's a topaz swift hammer, and then underneath it, it says liquid breaker. So if we right click on this item, you can see down here it has the special effect of breaks liquids, and that it also has negative, essentially 100% damage. So this normally would do 1100 damage. We got the negative that is tied in with the liquid breaker, so you don't have to worry about how much damage the tool actually does. It's gonna be reduced down to 0 anyway, and this will one-shot all fluids regardless, period. So if you want to get really fancy, you can put something like extra durability, and you can even put the AoE boons on this, so you can break up to 9 blocks of fluid or a 3x3 pattern of fluid with each hit. So that is really nice, and one of the main advantages of doing this through the forging system rather than the more traditional system of like buckets. So but let's move on and actually show you how you can forge this tool really pretty easily. I mean, if you want to make a super fancy one, that's one thing, and that might be a video for later. However, we're just going to cover the very basic way of forging one of these liquid breaker tools. But before that, let's go over just a few quirks of the liquid system. Basically, you can only place liquids inside of a beacon, and that beacon has to be older than, it's either 1 or 2 hours, something like that. So if you have a brand new beacon, you're gonna have to wait a couple of hours ish to be able to place fluids. And another interesting quirk is that the fluids cannot enter or leave your beacon. So this right here, I turned on beacon view, so this is technically a different beacon, and this fluid right here will not flow out into the adjacent beacon. Because they're owned by different players. There is supposed to be a system to where, like, if it's one of your alts, and they both have permissions that they're supposed to flow in and out, but I've yet to see that actually work. This is my crafter's beacon. The rest of this area is my main character's beacon. They each have permissions, and yeah, it doesn't work. So moving forward, the devs are considering maybe a special fluid type permission for the beacon permission system, but that is a feature still being debated. And a couple of things to keep in mind, at least for lava, is that it can burn grass and pretty much anything that is wood, which also includes torches, which I found out the hard way. So be a little bit careful, maybe do some testing before you start throwing lava around your base just yet. But let's hop over to my forger and take a look at forging a basic fluid breaker tool. Okay, so I'm over here on my forger. This is a centriforge that has no extra power, so the only thing I have going for me is that I do have a forging spec. We'll go over that very briefly and quickly. In order to get the most from skills as far as forging, your #1 goal is going to be to get this, where'd it go? The forging epic right here. It's under epic 2, and this is going to increase the flexibility of all gear, and it gives you extra slots on the ingredient deck for the centriforge. In other words, you can bring more tools to be able to help you during the forging process. Beyond that, you're going to want as much vitality, power, and intelligence as possible. So that's going to be 8 in each of these, and then you'll get the additional little bit from the attribute bonus on the end here. So with those 3 attributes plus the attribute bonus and the forging epic down below, you will have a fully decked out forging character or spec. You can get this fairly early on. It's something like level 17 or 18 if you just go straight for it. So if you want to make a dedicated character just for forging, you can do so fairly early on and with minimal effort. But coming over to the centriforge, you're going to need a tool. It doesn't matter what type of tool it is, as long as it's a shovel, axe, or hammer. If you use a totem, that will give you a fluid related boon. However, it will be the solidifier boon, so it'll turn water into ice, lava into igneous rock, and then the 2 other fluids into their counterparts, which would be primordial resin into resin, as well as petroleum into essentially asphalt. But what we're going to need to forge this fluid breaker tool is bare minimum. You do have to have a setting resin that finalizes the forging process. You need some venerable gum that is going to target the actual fluid breaker boon. And then finally some compounds of some sort. So I have pure boon 1 compound right here, as well as an unstable boon compound 1. These are the most basic compounds. They're really easy to get compared to other forge ingredients. The venerable gum is also fairly easy to make. It just requires earth yams beyond the actual gum base itself, which is a little bit more complicated. Basically, it just takes a whole bunch of sap, which is turned into syrup, as long with some like fleshy leaves or something like that. But you could always buy these. Again, you could always just go to your favorite forge shop and they'll probably be selling fluid breakers as well. But let's get down to business here. First up, just place basically as many venerable gums you feel is necessary. Each venerable gum, or each gum in general, should be about 10% chance increased to get that type of boon. So you could probably get away just fine using 3 of these, 4 to 5 if you want to be just extra certain that all of your points will actually go towards that boon. So we can go ahead, do 5 just to be safe. And let's start off. We can start off with this pure boon compound 1 that gives us just 100 boon points and nothing else. This unstable will actually give us some defect points, which will be a debuff if we actually rank it up. So let's just go ahead. You can double click the button and it kind of speeds up the process. So we're just filling up this bar, If this little slider lands in the yellow bar, it'll actually push in some of the points for a boon, which is that right there. Perfect. We got the liquid breaker boon. It says potential trait because it's still grayed out, or it's grayed out because it's a potential trait. We have to fill up this little bar beside it in order to actually get the boon. So just kind of keep going until we fill that up. And there we go. So now we have a liquid breaker tool. If you have other gums or you want to keep going and just get random boons, you could do that. However, for the purposes of this video, we're just going to go ahead and use our setting resin and call it good. There we go. Your gear is now setting, and you can see it over here in the queue. And we have the liquid breaker special effect. It negated all of the damage. Again, the damage doesn't mean anything. All liquid breaker tools will one-shot all liquids. Same thing for the solidifier boons. So we'll no longer be able to use the shovel to actually dig up, say, soil or any other block, but we'll now be able to use it to break all of the liquids. So that is pretty simple as far as forging goes. And for those that might be new to forging, I'll throw a link in the description to a community spreadsheet that will list what gum you need to use to target a particular boon. Not to mention, it'll list all the potential boons for a given tool. So it can be a huge help of trying to figure out what forging ingredients you need to either buy or craft to be able to make a particular tool. Okay, so I think that covers everything quite nicely. This was Jiivita. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more like this, and if there's anything you didn't like, please let me know down below. Also, if you like my channel, want to get cool perks, check out my Patreon page. Until next time, peace.